Welcome back to Hillbilly Pillars. This time around, I'm going to be talking about Van Morrison, Van the Man. Specifically, I'm going to do my own personal ranking of his 1970s discography, his studio albums. The 70s is stuff full of haymakers. It probably features more of my favorite albums than any other decade. And for me personally, Van Morrison won the decade, for whatever that means. He had 9 studio albums, extremely prolific, and they're all, at least to me, very good. Most of them are great. And when I got into vinyl records, kind of my first big thing I wanted to do was to get Van's 70s and 80s studio albums complete. A really great copy of each one of them, which I have very recently been able to do. So I'm going to do 2 videos. I'm going to do the 70s now, and then I'm going to follow up with a video ranking his work from the 80s. He was also super prolific and awesome in the 80s as well for me. So the one other thing I'd like to add before I start talking about each album is I believe Van is the most whiffed on or under considered artist in rock or pop or whatever you would want to call it. He gets a lot of recognition for Astral Weeks, which is phenomenal. But something in his work, I believe, just gets missed at the time. I think he's often been ahead of the curve. He's just been consistent with great album after great album, and he really has followed his own muse. You see some reflections of the times in his work and sounds, but I can't think of an artist on his level that was more deliberate about just going after whatever it was they were wanting to hear in their own music. So Van's the man. I love him, and here we go. This is a perfect example. We're counting backwards, so we'll start off with A Period of Transition. Which pensive Van are you from the cover? Man, Van has some interesting album cover choices. I think, anyway, great record. And this is 9th out of 9 for the decade for me. The reason I have it last, to me, the side A kind of misses. It's not one that I go to as far as often wanting to hear. But the second side is fantastic. Real soulful. I know he worked with Dr. John on this, and you can hear a lot of that coming through. I really love Flamingos Fly and Heavy Connection, which are on the B side. So at number 9 is A Period of Transition. For each record, I'm going to list my favorite song, and I also, for most of my videos, and I'm going to do that for this one, I also include a Spotify playlist that'll be linked below. For my song I'm going to choose from this is my favorite track, or at least the one I'm going to include on the playlist. I'm going to do Flamingos Fly. So starting off with A Period of Transition. All right, next. Hard Nose the Highway. These album covers, man, they are wild. All right, coming in at 8th of Van's incredible 70s discography. Also, cool record. The opener is Snow in San Anselmo, which is a big, epic type of piece. But I don't know, he does a choir and stuff, and it's not my favorite. But it's got Warm Love, which is an essential Van track. The title track, Hard Nose the Highway, is fantastic. The Great Deception, I'm not sure if it's probably not, but it's one of his first outward complaining about the record business songs, which is a through line in a lot of his discography. You'll have all these amazing records, and then there'll just be a song where he's pissed at managers and the business of it all. And The Great Deception on here is one of those, and it's fantastic. The song Green on the second side holds the record back a little bit to me. I don't know, it just misses for me. But so number 8, we got Hard Nosed the Highway. I love the title track, and that is the one I'll single out from it. Just a great Van song. All right, now we're getting to it, and when I'm probably going to start angering some people for us Van heads out there. Number 7, Van Morrison, his band, and the Street Choir. A lot of people have this really high up. It is just filled with straight at you R&B chestnuts. And I think for me, that's kind of where it misses a little bit. I am drawn to the long searching Van songs often. We'll put it this way, if you know his work, I'm more of a Common One guy than his band and the Street Choir guy. But Domino, Crazy Face, Call Me Up in Dreamland, Blue Money. Whew. Okay, Van's the man, and he was the man here. But for me, I've got it coming in at number 7, his band and the Street Choir. Moving on along. All right. You could take all the tea in China. We got Van Morrison's Tupelo Honey. He got country here, and this being a country channel, I am partial to it. I really like the sound of the record, and a lot of the piano parts on the songs, and yeah, it's a real groover. It's funny, the copy I have is pretty worn down, but I really like it. I got it at a record store in Macon, Georgia, and the vinyl's great, so that's cool. And yep, so we're moving on here, and that was Tupelo Honey. Next, Wavelength. Wavelength, I did the video that went super viral where everybody listed their most played albums, and this was the first one I mentioned. It's probably my most listened to Van record, and it's number 5 for the 70s. That's how great I think the decade was. Man, it just hits. A lot of great stuff. It is not as highly valued by critics and stuff. It was supposed to be like a return to radio hits, and I really love it. I think I skipped a couple of these records on listing songs, but they'll be in my playlist. But on this one, a real Van Morrison favorite of mine. My older brothers and I finally got around to seeing him live. He doesn't play often, and we all went out to Las Vegas last year and caught him. And I didn't know what to expect. I had high expectations, but it was beyond all of that. It was almost inconceivable how great his voice was, how much form it still had. And considering his possibilities of what he could play, he played songs from throughout his career, didn't lean heavy on hits, probably disappointing to casual fans, actually. And my brothers and I, we always do a list of 5 songs we'd like to hear. And for me, the song that I'm picking from this is called Checking It Out. It's just a real groovy Van song, and I love it. So, yep, coming in, what is this, 5, I believe, is Wavelength. All right, we're getting to the heavy hitters. Y'all might have heard of this one, Moondance. Here is my controversial Van Morrison take. I do not love the title track. I know, maybe that's trying to be too cool for school or whatever. And I don't think it's just about the frequency of the radio play or how, pervasive the title track is. I just never loved it. And for me, particularly, it doesn't seem to fit in on the record. But I will say, having gotten into vinyl, I am like a sides guy, and I think which is actually kind of another alternate take. And I'm not doing this just to be hip, I promise. I think side 2 might be his finest. It is moving and uplifting and beautiful. It is when I am feeling my best, it is what I want to hear for like the affirmation of, man, just being alive. Come running, these dreams of you, brand new day, everyone, and glad tidings. Man, was he on it. Just unbelievable run song. So I think this one's probably too low because it's on me because of my struggle with the title track. But I mean, come on, Moondance. All right, moving on. How much did he do in the 70s? We have Into the Music. Boom. This is what he closed out the decade with. Starts off with Bright Side of the Road and Full Force Gale. Comes in hot. And then on the second side, just him taking it to a level I don't know if anyone else recorded. I remember my brothers and I, we had a real phenomenal moment. We started out kind of on Dylan and Springsteen. We started out on Dylan and Springsteen. And then I got into bootlegs, Springsteen bootlegs. And there was a magic to like his early 70s shows, like 75 and the Darkness Tour and these long drawn out performances. And I thought it came from nowhere, but it didn't. As Van likes to complain about a lot of it was probably lifted from him or at least inspired, however you want to look at it. It's all great. But and the healing has begun on side 2. Just what a sexy song and what a great work. So at number 3 is Into the Music. And now we're at our top 2. All right, we have St. Dominic's Preview. What can you say? Right in the peak of his early 70s when it just seems like everything he was touching was magic. He put this out, starts out with the banger Jackie Wilson Said, and then you've got the title track, which you might, push come to shove, to me might for me be his finest. It just blends all the things. It is long, it is epic, it is searching, it hits, it's got rhythm, it's fantastically written, it transports you. And then just from there, Redwood Tree and Almost Independence Day, the second side of St. Dominic's Preview is otherworldly. And so, yep, Van Morrison, St. Dominic's Preview. And that leaves one to rule them all, and that is Veedon Fleece. Masterpiece. I do not use that word. I do not underestimate the power of that word. This is a masterpiece. If there is such a thing, this is it. At the time it was released, it was majoritively panned or at best indifferent by critics. I actually, in researching my 70s rankings, I read the original Rolling Stone review. It was by a guy named Jim Miller, I believe, and he trashed it. And I just, reviews are reviews. Sometimes it hits you, sometimes it doesn't, but this went out of its way to talk about what a waste this record was. And I don't know what was wrong with that guy's ear holes or his brain or his soul. Streets of Arklow. It starts out with Fair Play, my favorite Van opener, just gorgeous. And then the second side kicks off with, to me, what is his most underrated song in his catalog, Bulbs. Just that's a hit song. That should have been that should have been on the charts and flying off. And then it doesn't slow down from there. I believe it was on Stereo Gum. There's a ranking of Van's entire discography. At the time it was put out anyway. He's so prolific. I'm sure they've missed a few now. But it was by, I believe, Elizabeth Tracy. I might get that name wrong. I'll provide a link to it. And it is a fantastic piece because It's really reverent of Van. They acknowledge, you lower on the list, they have a lot of his newer releases, and they say, well, that's probably because he was ahead of the curve. And they had this at number 1 too, and they probably, not probably, but can say it more eloquently than I can. But this is an absolute masterpiece that I would suggest that anyone, if you haven't heard, you need to listen to. Easily slots into my top 10 of all time, and I'm sure it's on the upper end of that. So that's it. That is my ranking of the very prolific Van Morrison and his 70s albums. Like I said, there'll be a playlist, Spotify, where I'll pick a track from each record if you want to check that out. And I'd love to hear your comments on where you've got the records and which ones are your favorite. Thanks for taking the time.